Camembert at home, homemade camembert. It used to seem like that was something impossible. Right, those two words, at home and camembert. It just seemed unthinkable. But actually, it is possible. After visiting a cheese-making farm, where people, you'll see where we were, started out as cheese enthusiasts, then began making it for themselves, and eventually turned it into a real, thriving business. And talking with the owner, Alina, we discussed the fact that, actually, you really can make any kind of cheese at home. The question is, how practical is it? How profitable is it in terms of your time, your attention, which is also a resource, and your energy, sometimes even in terms of cost, because when you do it in small batches, it can actually turn out to be kind of expensive. But in reality, you can make any kind of cheese at home. There are just a few rules. First of all, perfect cleanliness and sterility. At home, it's sometimes hard to maintain this because a family member might walk by and stir up some dust, a fly or gnat might buzz through, the cat might run past, or the dog might wag its tail, and it's just difficult to keep that level of sterility like they do in production facilities, where everything is isolated and the temperature is kept stable, you know. Moving on, the next factor is the quality of your raw materials. On farms, the raw material is fresh, just after milking. Yeah, everything there is sterile too. It quickly goes through the right temperature stages, gets to the workshop, and is immediately processed. When we buy milk at the market, we can't be sure if it's really from this morning or from yesterday. You have to be very careful about that. Or choose trusted producers, for example, farms you've actually visited. We have organic milk, Azrel, and Dober Firma. These are the ones I know for sure. I've been there and I trust them completely. Or maybe it's your own suppliers, like Aunt Nina or Grandma Nadia, for example, people you also trust. And they'll honestly bring you great, rich, fresh milk. So what's next? Look in stores on various websites, or in specialized shops that truly specialize in cheese making or equipment for making cheese. They always have helpful recipe booklets. If you very carefully and precisely follow the recipe booklets and really strictly stick to the specified cooking time and exact temperature settings, you will definitely succeed in your culinary endeavors. Start with something basic, something not too complicated. Then you'll be observing this living being, because cheese is also a living thing, especially camembert. Yes, there are live bacteria on the outside and inside, which somehow, in a fantastic way, change its texture and structure. So we start with this rather rubbery curd, right, a milky white one that forms thanks to specific enzymes, beneficial bacteria, and precise temperature control. By the way, I remember the first times I brought cheese from France, Camembert or Brie, my brother, not knowing that you're supposed to eat it all together, always tried to peel off this rind and thought it was some kind of strange paper. This white moldy rind on Camembert, right. I think my family isn't the only one like that. You probably had someone like that too. Or maybe you even tried it that way yourself once. So let's get down to business. I'll share more details as we go along, okay? Let's take the milk. Look, I have this organic farm milk, but it's pasteurized. Not ultra-pasteurized, just pasteurized. Again, after discussions with experienced cheesemakers, we mutually agreed that for cheeses with a considerably long aging process, well, Camembert isn't aged for that long, but it's certainly not a soft, fresh cheese either. It's generally less risky to utilize pasteurized milk. Break time equals 0.5s/, there you go. So we always only use carefully selected pasteurized milk. Actually, it's not really a strict requirement. When it's done, you know, on a large industrial scale, to prevent certain risks with these molds that can go one way or another, people just use, well, they pasteurize the milk. If you're experimenting at home with just one piece, then go ahead. You can use freshly milked milk from Grandma Nina or Aunt Helia and make it too. Everything will be fine, I assure you. My milk is cold. I need to heat it up to 32 degrees. For this, we definitely need a thermometer. We're not at the stage yet where we can just measure with a finger. So we use a thermometer. Everything needs balance, even the thermometer. That's it. I need some water to dilute the rennet. Next, we'll also need these little cheese molds for Camembert for the small ones. For example, if you want one like this, yeah, for several uses. You can use a bigger one. You can take both this one and that one. Next, we need a drainage mat like this one. We'll use it to let our cheese rest and drain, and later the cheese will continue to sit on it because we need air circulation. After that, our cheese will mature in special cheese paper. I also recommend not using regular parchment paper because it's different in both composition and structure. So don't skimp on it, it's inexpensive. You just need to order it and wait for it to arrive. This is special cheese paper. Alrighty. Next, we'll need a little bit of calcium chloride. Let me explain. We only use calcium chloride for pasteurized milk. It's not needed for unpasteurized milk. So, if you're using store-bought milk, take a little bit of calcium chloride. Let me go ahead and dissolve some in water in advance. We'll only need about a tablespoon of the dissolved solution. Alright, look at the temperature, exactly 32 degrees, perfect, just perfect. Take it off the heat, because you know, the bottom is hot, the stove is hot, and it'll keep raising the temperature, which we don't want to happen. With temperatures, look, we can't mess around more than, well, a 2-degree margin is acceptable. But see, when we're working with cheese, this can negatively affect the taste or the texture. So try to be as precise as in a pharmacy. So, calcium chloride. Why do we add it specifically to pasteurized milk? Because during pasteurization. And what is pasteurization? Right. It's raising the temperature to, 65 to 70 degrees. That's the temperature at which, let's say, some bad bacteria and compounds are destroyed, disappear, while the good ones still remain. We quickly raise this temperature and then sharply lower it. In other words, you need a rapid drop in temperature. If this happens slowly, then already at a temperature of about 42, 45, 40, or 37 degrees, you'll start to get some sourness, and the milk will just slowly do its own thing. That's why pasteurization is important. The temperature goes up sharply, then down sharply. Got it? Okay, that's clear now. But along with the negative characters in this play, the calcium compounds also get broken down. We need calcium for the integrity of the milk to form a good curd and to reduce waste. We diluted this calcium in water and added a dessert spoonful. That's what I call it. We meticulously mixed it, and it's as if we've successfully restored a significant portion of that crucial calcium balance, effectively making the pasteurized milk incredibly fresh and vibrant. Yes, we stirred it. Next, we sow the field. We sow the field with starter culture. Besides the starter culture for Camembert, just like for Brie, or say, Gorgonzola, door blue, you can also do this at home. We also add mold. It will always be written on the packaging when you buy it, starter culture. I've marked it in red, that's one. I need it for my 5 liters of milk. Next, the enzymes are marked in blue. Here's the enzyme. It's added later. And the mold. There are 2 types of mold. They are also added right away. So, let's sow our field. Just to make it clear, the starter culture, the mold, well, the mold is obvious, right? It's for forming the rind to get it going. These are special bacteria. And to make sure they're the right ones, because cheese can develop mold even without these special bacteria, but then it would be a different kind of mold. There will also be penicillin in there. By the way, it's actually very beneficial, but there's a risk that not everything will turn out well. Then the starter culture, it affects the taste. Of course, the milk and its quality determine the taste of our cheese, and the starter culture, during the fermentation process, as these bacteria do their work, they create the depth of flavor, sometimes sharpness, sometimes sweetness, sometimes a nutty note, depending on the type of starter used, right? Here, you just use 0.03 grams or 0.02 grams per 5 liters, all in tiny doses. But it's great that you can buy such dosages of starter cultures, bacteria, enzymes, and mold for home production and distribution. Before, you could only buy this stuff for, 100 liters, thousands, or even tons of milk, but now you can get it even for 5 liters, 1 liter, and so on. We added the starter culture and added the mold right away too, both types. Yeah, you always need to give these starter cultures, this powder, a little bit of time, about a minute, so that at first, as it floats on top, it swells up and rounds out, and then we mix it in, and it dissolves nicely on its own. So if you pour it in and mix it right away, there's a risk that it'll just clump up, you know. It can form little lumps, you know. But this way, each bit kind of separates on top, soaks up a bit of milk, and then, once you mix, they're all floating freely, each on its own, so to speak. Yeah, we use a clean spoon or skimmer and mix it all together. So if the starter is about flavor, then the enzyme. And in the theory lesson, we talked about the different types of enzymes and starters, right? So now we're using rennet enzyme. It's the one that actually causes the curd to form. It helps the cheese come together and separate from the whey. Some of the milk sugars will separate out as well, by the way. Because if you remember, whey is always sweet, right? The sugar stays in the whey, and the cheese doesn't take it. After we've added the starter culture, we need to. I cover it with a lid so that no film forms and nothing falls in. Leave it for half an hour. We do this so the starter culture spreads evenly. You can even, if you're like me and chatting with someone, keep stirring it to distribute the bacteria evenly. Because if we add the rennet right away, the curd will form very quickly. I don't know. That's why it's important to let it sit for 20 to 30 minutes after adding the starter. Only after that do we add the rennet, which we first dissolve in 50 milliliters of water. I have exactly 50 milliliters here. We take this rennet, dissolve it, and let it wait for its time, right? Remember, everything should be clean, wiped down beforehand, preferably sterilized. This is waiting for us. We put away unnecessary items, wipe everything. Okay, we've let it sit for a bit. The starter culture has had a little time to work. Now we add the rennet. It's pretty cool in my room here, so I think it'll take about an hour and a half for the curd to set. So, after an hour, I'll open the lid and check how it's doing. If that nice curd has formed, the whey has separated, and I have a solid mass, then we'll start cutting and continue working with our future camembert. God, that sounds so beautiful again. There you go. No batteries, no ovens needed. Just wrap it up and let the process happen on its own. Get up, I said. Camembert has fallen asleep. All right, let's take off the blanket. Enough sleeping. Let's check if our curd has set. Yes, it has set. See? It's super thick, solid, just unbelievably good. So, what do we do next? With a super clean knife, we cut it into these sort of cubes. So we take it super, it cuts just perfectly, nothing sticks. If by chance, when you're cutting, because this has happened to me before, it's not my first time trying. If you're cutting with the knife, and it doesn't go through as easily as mine does now, like through delicate jelly, and instead it drags along, then something went wrong. Either you messed up somewhere with the proportions, like with the amounts, maybe you added too much rennet, or didn't add something else. Or, more likely, you didn't pay attention to the temperature. Maybe it was too high at some point, and then the curd overheats and ends up kind of slightly melted. Right now, everything turned out just perfectly for us, perfectly. Yes, we've cut it. Now, using a clean skimmer, we gently stir it. But try to do it in a way that you don't completely break up these pieces, this curd grain. Look, we'll hardly have any whey left over at all. That's exactly how it should be. That's wonderful. Look how beautiful it is, just look. Panna cotta's got nothing on this. Look. It's whole, but at the same time, look how delicate it is. You just touched it. This is a super class. We stir this grain a little so that it becomes denser, so that it gains strength, so to speak. And you need to mix it for a few minutes. I promise you that every time you experiment, maybe not every time, but every once in a while, something new will happen, something will change. And every time you will ask yourself, ChatGPT and me and my team, so what? And what? That's why you should definitely document your results, for example, by taking photos, and write everything down in your notebook, even down to the temperature, if it differs by even 2 degrees. Oops, maybe you overheated it, maybe you underheated it, for example, or you changed the starter supplier, or the manufacturer, or you switched the milk. Keep everything in your notebook so that later we can track what went wrong, or on the contrary, what led to such an amazingly delicious result. All right, we've gently stirred our curds a bit. Now it's time to drain our future Camembert. God, I can't believe this thing is going to turn into French cheese. Very soon. Well, not that soon, but it will happen. So, I'm putting this kind of container here so everything can drain easily. Basically, using whatever you have at home, without any special fancy equipment, without a whole workshop, you and I can make something like this. I'll immediately put drainage mats here, so later I can transfer all of this to the fridge without the rack yet. And now we place the molds. These can be either small or large. We'll see now how many we'll actually need. Actually, how many will we end up with, you and I? We need to fill the molds up to the top line, where our drainage holes are. At first, it might seem big, but over time it will settle, and settle. Wait. We leave it under its own weight. In this case, we do not use a press. We will need to carefully turn these developing pieces of future Camembert cheese over time to ensure even browning, even moisture loss, and even texture formation. The outside is denser, while the inside remains softer. We'll need to flip them. And I repeat, we don't use any press. Only draining will happen under its own weight. Yeah, we're going to get a lot of cheese. Let's use the big mold too, maybe even more than one. Oh, silly me. I'm going to get more molds. Okay, yeah, I found another mold, and I have another one. I'll show you now. This one's a super convenient mold. Yeah, it's nice and even, and there's a container for draining. Cover it with a lid so no smells get in, and nothing else can get inside. So there are different options. Yeah, let's put a mat in here so it drains nicely. We'll do everything now. This will be a big Camembert. Phew. Yeah, this is such a super handy thing. There we go, done. We'll nicely cover this with some cheesecloth. All right. Let's cover it up. We'll leave it with you at, let's say, my room temperature. Yeah, it's not hot in here. For at least an hour, just until it drains. We're not putting it in the fridge yet. That's where it will mature later. If your room is too hot, you should turn on the air conditioner or move it somewhere cooler, like the veranda or the living room. All right. So we leave it like this and let it drip for now. So, a few hours have passed at least. It has drained. Now we do the first flip and transfer it onto this draining mat, into this container, and let it sit there. Although you could also leave it on this rack, it's not that important. Next, my friend, for the next 3 to 4 hours. So to flip it, at first it's delicate, but the longer the cheese sits, the more it will become, of course, like a pliable ball. The first time, when it's still delicate, we turn it out like this onto our hand, flip it over onto the palms, and put it back. Yes, let's take the top and bottom. It's okay if it breaks a little there. This is the first time. It's all still compacting under its own weight. Everything will be fine. Don't worry. So once I threw it here too and quickly took the form back. Okay. Once and it was over. Such a Tamagotchi. Once onto the palm and took it here, transferred it back. You can even out the edges a bit. Yes, our delicate camembert. Yes, this is a big piece. Yes. We cover everything. And we'll end up repeating this about 6 to 8 times. All right, flipped it over, flipped it over, flipped it over, flipped it over. Then we'll put it in the fridge. Okay, let's keep working on developing the mold on the camembert. So, we finished with the flipping. See, we had the molds completely full. Remember, we poured in the curd. And what did it turn into? Into a third of the mold, or even less, a quarter. Now we're going to take out the future camembert. We're taking them out of the molds, right? We're going to. They've become denser. Look, we've got these nice, whole little discs. Remember how we slit them? When we slit them, hop, hop. I learned everything on the farm. 1, 2, hop, 1, 2, 3, or even. Oh no, mine doesn't fly that nicely yet. Well, almost flies. Yeah, you flipped them all over. There, hop, they'll turn out to be nice little cheeses. Look, you should count on it taking about 3 weeks to make camembert, 3 weeks at minimum. Yeah, with the big one, you see, it didn't really work out for me. At first, it kept falling apart on me. Maybe, after all, we'll do it as an experiment, but it just doesn't hold together. We'll keep it nearby. But you can already eat this. It's tasty, like homemade cottage cheese, just with a deeper flavor. Yeah, the small molds are definitely more convenient. This one broke apart on me too. See, it's so much better to learn from my mistakes than your own. Yeah, and I've got one more little one here. Come here. This is awesome, super convenient, and great for aging later on. Got it out. What a beautiful shape, look. Yeah, it's a handy container, convenient for us. I mean, it's compact, so it's good for the fridge, or wherever you're going to put it. Just to get ahead a bit, I'll say that the hardest thing with camembert is finding the right temperature, because it matures best, just like brie and other mold-ripened cheeses, at around 10 to 12 degrees or 10 to 14 degrees. And that's a temperature you don't really get in a regular fridge. That's usually some kind of cellar, or like the veranda at my parents' place. It's always cold there. So you need to find that exact temperature. Once you have it, I have no doubt at all that you should try making cheese. Line the bottom of the container with paper towels so that any remaining moisture can drain out. It will keep doing that, so the paper towels will absorb the moisture. We lay them on the bottom, and then after a few days, you can change them. And my friend, don't forget to turn it over regularly. Keep doing this all the way until the very end, right up until the camembert is almost ready to go into your mouth, at least once a day. You can even set an alarm. For example, at 9 in the morning, flip it over, turn it. And now our little cheeses go in here. Now we put them in upside down, with the top facing down. That's right, like this, up facing down. That's it. The mold we've seeded will start working and forming a fluffy coating. We'll watch this together and hopefully be happy with the results. Not hoping, I'm sure of it. All right, one and my slightly sickly, big one, come here too. We can't do this without you, can we? A little broken, but that's okay. We'll see how this works out. Maybe the mold will actually bring it all together. Next, my chief, I always cover all this with a little piece of gauze so it can breathe. But no bugs or spiders ever wanted to get in here. You know what I forgot? I put the salt in beforehand, but I remembered just in time. Before we send it off, so to speak, to let the mold form, you need to salt each side with about half a teaspoon per side. The salt will also draw out the moisture, you know. Yeah, that's exactly why the towels will get wet. Just like that, salted it and back it goes. Come here, this one's going to be my favorite, this big one. And now we cover it up neatly. There we go. Of course, you can buy a bunch of special containers, but for the first few times, whatever you have at home will do just fine. And remember, no direct sunlight. All right, we'll keep flipping it from time to time and watch for the first little white fuzz. Yes, so what's next? 3 weeks have passed, flipping it every day from one side to the other, keeping it in the fridge. And now we have something very, very similar to the cheese you buy at the store. By the way, take a look at how my little Camembert, the one that was broken, has grown thanks to the mold. Everything's working, it's soft inside. Look, a sign that the cheese is starting to ripen is when you press here with your finger. See, look there, it's nice and lively. So, around the edges we have this kind of texture, pretty dense, but inside it's still soft. It needs to rest for literally 1 more week, but now in parchment paper. You still need to flip it every day, just like before, set an alarm if you have to. Remember, right, we flip it so that the mold spreads evenly, so the rind forms evenly, without being thicker or thinner in some places. This is parchment paper that I bought, and it's specifically made for cheese, for storing and aging cheese. In fact, cheese is often sold in this kind of paper, like this artisanal, farm-made cheese, right. And just like that, in a week it'll be ready. Technically, you could try it now, but for a richer flavor and the right texture, just wait a little longer. Okay, I'll show you what it looks like inside. Here you go. Look at this beauty. It's all thanks to your patience and curiosity. I've had different Tamagotchis, but this one is my favorite. This is real French, super tasty, awesome cheese. I'll leave this, let it mature. This is wonderful. And just like that, 1, 2, well, maybe you'll do it even prettier if you're into gift wrapping, some nice envelopes, right. All neatly packed up. You can lightly stick it with some adhesive tape or securely tie it with a piece of string, and that's essentially it. I'm sure no one will believe this cheese is homemade. Whoop whoop. The temperature should be 8 to 10 degrees. So even if I say it 100 times now, it'll just go in one ear and out the other. Refer to the document, keep a journal, and everything will turn out great. And I'm happy. I was traveling while the cheese was aging. I asked my assistant to keep turning the cheese, but even while I was on the trip, I kept thinking, kept reminding, Ire, how's the Camembert? How is it doing? How is it doing? Don't forget. Yeah, I'm learning how to pack it nicely. My chef, I wish you a successful experiment and, of course, delicious cheese. I'm sure you'll succeed. Don't forget to praise yourself for it, to be proud of your results and achievements. And most importantly, what I value most in people, especially cooks, is their curiosity. It's not laziness, but a search for something new, an unlocking of the potential of that milk. Look at what you can make from it. Enjoy your meal.